Thank you all so much for coming here. My name is 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗍. I'm the board president of Publishing Professionals Network. I am excited. I'll admit it, nervous as well. I'm fully vaxxed, double boosted. I tested this morning. I've been wearing a mask. But this is so exciting to finally be back in person, seeing people I have been Zooming with for way too long, seeing people I've never met before. Thank you, those of you who came up and introduced yourself to me. Thank you to all of you who are attending virtually. This is a hybrid event, and obviously there are a lot of complications with that. And this is the first time that we've ever tried to do it, but it's clear to us that we're gonna have to do this in the future. Ongoing. It's great for accessibility. It's great to be seeing each other in person, but also knowing that there are people coming from Florida and Nebraska. I know that in some of our meetups, we had people coming from Australia. So how exciting is that? Before I dive too deeply into a very brief welcome, before we get to introducing the keynote, I want to do a land acknowledgement for those of you who aren't familiar with what a land acknowledgement is. It's to acknowledge the fact that we are here on stolen land. And I've written it out so I won't mess it up because it's important to get it right. Here in Berkeley at the David Brower Center, we are on 𝗲𝗍𝗀𝗀𝗀 land, the home territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. The Ohlone community thrives today and continues to steward the land. Indigenous groups like the Sagoria Land Trust offer a chance to acknowledge the history of colonial genocide and to work toward reparations. This event is hybrid, so for those of you who are attending from other parts of the country, we encourage you to go to www.native-land.ca to discover what tribal lands you might be on. So thank you for that. So this is very exciting. First of all, it's really special to me. You'll notice I'm wearing pants. That just shows how seriously I'm taking this event. Let me talk very briefly about Publishing Professional Networks. We are an all-volunteer nonprofit. We have been around forever. We used to be called Book Builders West, and in 2012, we pivoted to Publishing Professionals Network, technically a more generic sounding name, but one that sort of was more inclusive of the kinds of folks who this community included. And so I think it was a good pivot. The mission remains the same. We focus on celebrating excellence in bookmaking, but also celebrating the community that makes those books as individuals, as publishing companies, as vendors, as freelancers, as all of us coming together. This is an amazing group of people, both the people who are on this fabulous working board, Barbara Fuller, who's going to be talking a little bit about how many people it took to put this together, but I want to honor Barbara Fuller, who has really been the amazing engine behind making this conference come together. So just a quick thank you to Barbara Fuller. But this is really about community. This is about how a group of us like this, both here in person and online, can come together to support each other. Amazing panel sessions that reflect the mission of that, but also to have programs where individuals can be supported who are new to the publishing industry or who are interested in potentially joining the publishing industry to find out about it. And so there are wonderful programs that we have. So I'm going to just lightly touch on a couple of the things that we've done. First of all, we've done this amazing conference, which is huge. In the fall, we have our annual book show. And the book show this year is the 50th PPN book show, which is pretty amazing. We have these monthly meetups. Generally, they are the third Thursday of every month. We've been doing them virtually for obvious reasons. We're constantly talking about when we're also going to start doing them again in person. And they're really wonderful. There are these social gatherings, but we have these wonderful discussions about book publishing, but also just about what it means to be living in the world today within the book publishing business, and we have a lot of fun. And we have something called Immersion Program, which has been on hold because of the pandemic. I won't go into great detail. The name badges for those of you who are attending in person, and we'll try to do this for those attending virtually as well, indicates whether the person is a PPN board member. Feel free to come talk to us if you're interested in finding out about the Immersion Program or anything that we do. But the Immersion Program is basically a program where someone who's new to publishing or interested in getting in publishing basically goes to a publishing company and just is there immersed in a program for at least a day. And that's a program that we hope to get started once we're can do so safely. And then, of course, you can sign up to be on our mailing list. You don't have to be a member to do that. You can just go to our website and sign up, and we don't abuse it too much other than when we send out all those emails about this conference. But we send out, once a month, we send out a notice about the sort of all the things that we have going on, and then also about the meetups that we do. One of the things that's important to us, that we try to keep the cost of this conference really low. We're not here trying to make money for this. There's no paid staff that's for this. This is really about securing this amazing space here at the David Brower Center and also doing this Zoom event virtually. So the money is really just to kind of sustain things. We think that the membership rates are really low, but if there's anyone who finds them to be a hurdle, please reach out to us. We don't want money to be a problem. We want you to join this amazing community, and please don't let money be a problem for that. A reminder that this is being recorded. I think those of you who are joining Zoom, you can't join until you acknowledge that it's being recorded. We had someone who's a photographer who we were hoping was going to be able to take photos of the panels and sessions. Couldn't do it. If you have a great one of those cool iPhones that takes amazing pictures, please feel free to take pictures of the panelists and share them with them so that next time we do this conference, we can have pictures that reflect what an amazing session this is. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Barbara Fuller. Thank you all very much.
Hello. It's so great to be here. It is so great to see all of you here. Yes, we started planning this event over a year ago now. And at that time, we didn't really know if we were going to be able to meet in person. Nobody knew anything at that point about anything. And I would say right up till about a week ago, we weren't 100% sure how this was all going to go. So we are just so pleased and excited to be here, to see so many of you here, and also to have now the technology to bring in those who could not come but wanted to be with us, could not come in person but wanted to be with us. So our theme is the new future of publishing, and that's what we're doing. We're doing the new future. We're here in a variety of ways. I wanted to thank a few people. As David said earlier, this has all been put together by volunteers. And first wanted to mention Emily Boyd, who is one of our board members. Emily came to her very first board meeting on Zoom a little over a year ago. And at that meeting, we put her on the spot and said, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I really miss those conferences. I really liked those conferences. And I actually came to the PPN board to work on those conferences also when they first started back in 2014. But we had not had one for several years, just because we didn't have the resources. So with that, we started, and here we are. And Emily has been key in development, working with the caterer, with the keynote, with the program development, with all kinds of things. So that's great. We do have a small committee. It's a very small committee. We have 7 members on this committee from the board. And I want to also thank all of them. And I can just say that we've been meeting nearly weekly for about a year. I'm not going to take the time to elaborate on everyone, but their badges say that they're board members. And if you meet someone and talk to them, you can find out what specifically they did. These people did everything from program development to the hybrid. That was not my thing. The technical thing was not my thing. So I'm so grateful for our board members who helped with that. Just the website development, all of those kinds of things. So we have Peter Goodman, Mimi Heft, David Peaty, David Van Ness, and David 𝗔𝗱𝗍𝗀𝗀. And again, they are noted on their badges that they are board members, but maybe you could just wave your hand if I just named you so people can see who you are. Also, a thank you to Mariah Bear, who managed our volunteers, which took a great stress off of us, and who brought in a volunteer team to help us out. And they also are noted on their badges today. You saw some of them at the registration table, and they will be helping throughout the day. So thank you so much to all of our volunteers. We had 17 conference sponsors, and these people made it so that we could do this, honestly. You will see their logos throughout our literature on our website. You will see tables for our premier sponsors in the lobby. Please go visit them, see what their companies do. These are great people, and they did help us make this happen. So again, thank you to our sponsors. One last group, our speakers. We actually have 30 speakers today, including a few who are attending virtually, and many are here and also are noted. And we are so excited about the program we've put together for you and the people who have volunteered their time to come and talk in those programs and share with you. So again, 30 speakers. Thank you. So I do have one regret. We have 9 sessions and I don't get to go to all of them. I really am excited about what we're doing. And I know I've heard from several of you also who said that you were having a hard time deciding. So the good news is that we are recording everything, that you will be able to log in after the fact, whether you're here in person or whether you're joining us virtually, and listen to the ones that you missed. And I can guarantee you I will be doing that because I know what we have in store. And now I would like to invite 𝗲𝗍𝗆𝗍𝗆 up, who will be introducing our keynote. Thank you.
Oh, wow. This is exciting. I was telling Valerie over there that I'm glad I forgot my mascara because I was already dabbing my eyes a little bit earlier today, just seeing people in person like this. So, and also welcoming the virtual audience. It's just marvelous that you're all here in person and otherwise. So, Helena Brantley is a born and bred New Jersey woman. She did not start out in publishing. She was a PR professional with PR agencies, her favorite being RTC Direct. It was a WPP company in media and advertising. Helena was publicist for the first 2 years for the Bay Area Book Festival. She was publicist and then later co-curator of the Berkeley Side Festival of Ideas. 17 years ago, offered a role by Harper One, Helena left her beloved New Jersey and moved out here to the Bay Area. She eventually moved on to Nolo Press and then finally established her own business, Red Pencil Marketing and Publicity. Helena works with a diverse array of author scholars, subject matter experts, and publishing companies who write nonfiction. I first met Helena at a Bay Area Women in Publishing meetup. I want to shout out to Bay Area Women in Publishing too. There's quite a few of us here. It's a pleasure collaborating with Helena. We work together sometimes on her projects. And I love working with her. I love working for authors who are creating content that is meaningful and exciting to myself and to so many other people. I'm proud to introduce Helena Brantley as our 2022 keynote speaker. Come on in, Helena.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Mimi, thank you for that introduction. And thank you, PPN, for having me and for your years of commitment and investment in the Bay Area publishing community. And to your entire hardworking and friendly team, congratulations on the start of your first hybrid conference. Because this conference is, for many of us, the first industry gathering since the start of the pandemic, I want to just take a moment and acknowledge the loss of our colleagues, our friends, our family, and others who are now among the more than 6 million people who have died from COVID. Over the last few months, since receiving a really lovely invitation from Emily Boyd, as I have been working and reading and listening and talking with people about all sorts of things about publishing and books and the world of things more broadly, a way to think about this lofty question about our future slowly began to emerge for me. And while I have no crystal ball, what I do have is a genuine interest and a love for this industry. Insatiable curiosity, the joy of working with people whose ideas become the things we read to escape, to learn, to watch, to listen, and the joys and pains of being part of this Bay Area publishing ecosystem for nearly 20 years now. So I bring all of that to thinking about this question about our future. And for a while, there were, with the deaths of Bell Hooks, Joan Didion, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Leo Marx, and others, I did wonder if maybe our best days in publishing are behind us. Bone Black, Sisters of the Yam, A Year of Magical Thinking, A Coney Island of the Mind, The Machine in the Garden. What an amazing generation of writers and an incredible backlist. And then one morning, deep into listening to an interview with Timothy Snyder, the Yale historian led by Ezra Klein, the co-founder of Vox and the New York Times columnist and podcaster who lives here in the Bay Area, I found what felt like an anchor for thinking about the future of an industry full of ideas people. Now, this was not a conversation about publishing. This was a conversation about Putin and Ukraine and, quote, the politics of inevitability. It centered on Snyder's 2019 book, The Road to Unfreedom. Here's what Snyder said that resonated with me, and maybe it will with you too. Quote, "The future is unknown and depends to a great deal upon us. And it depends on our actions, which can only be unpredictable and interesting if they're guided by values, if they're guided by creative ideas." Snyder continues, "As people are more and more afraid of the future, they're more and more afraid to venture out with ideas. But also in the other way around, the worse we get at talking about ideas, the harder it is for us to imagine the future as being anything else but like the present, or the present with some kind of catastrophe." So let me try to build on that. For all that makes the current moment hard and frightening, war and all of its related atrocities, COVID, inflation, supply chain woes, a warming earth, staggering inequality around race, gender, sexuality, age, accessibility, and class, banned books, the loss of attention spans, there's a whole lot to reckon with right now. And also, what an incredible time to be alive. And to be in the business of ideas, to be conveyors of content in all of her forms. Whatever it is that you in this room and all of you online do as part of this publishing ecosystem, writing, editing, agenting, illustrating, producing, printing, promoting, selling, reporting on, buying, and I hope we're all buying and renting from the library. I believe we are uniquely suited for the work of this moment. And as Michael Peach, the CEO of Hachette Book Group, said in his keynote a few days ago at the Book Industry Study Group's first in-person annual meeting in 3 years, there are encouraging trends. Higher than expected book sales during the pandemic, an increase in interest in reading, higher backlist sales fueled in part by more online sales, consumer support for different formats, the ability of publishers to adapt to remote work, the increase in sales fueled by social media, and publishing's commitment to produce more works by people of color. I find that it helps to remember that the work we do and how we do it is in support of a future we may not all see. And in this way, our work is in service to something bigger than us and larger than all of us. So let me spend the next few minutes at the start of this conference to share 3 ideas that come to me about the new future of publishing. Number 1, competition drives innovation, yes, and mission and purpose too. I do not know how to think about the future of publishing without thinking about innovation and competition. Sometimes it feels like so much of our energy in publishing is steeped in this troubling notion that things are just supposed to stay the same forever. This speaks to our history, which is rich and storied, and also myopic and homogeneous. It can feel like much of our conversations about innovation are reactive and often largely focused on how one particularly aggressive and deep-pocketed corporation has admittedly redefined our industry. And that, history reminds me, is what disruptors and our family of fellow capitalists do and have always done. Here's what I mean about how competition drives innovation and clarity of purpose. Consider this statement. The mission of One World is to provide a home for authors, novelists, essayists, memoirists, poets, journalists, thinkers, activists, and creative artists unconstrained by genre, who seek to challenge the status quo, subvert dominant narratives, and give us new language to understand our past, present, and future. Now, that's some pretty terrific copy. But then you read the bios of the One World team on their website and their thoughtful introductions of titles through their actually worth reading newsletter. It is hard not to note the purpose-driven language their editor-in-chief Chris Jackson uses when he talks about the mission of One World, as he did quite memorably with the professor and podcast host Noah Feldman last year. So then the awards and the bestsellers and the rich social media engagement, well, they all reflect not only innovation, but clarity of purpose in a vast sea of competition. During the early days of the pandemic, I made a small donation to Grey Wolf Press, and I began to receive books in the mail, always with the most delightful correspondence. Last month, I received an email with a simple subject line, Grey Wolf's Independence. It was from Fiona McRae, publisher of Grey Wolf since 1994. I just kind of marveled at the simplicity and clarity of purpose in her email, in which she also announced that she'll be retiring this summer. Here's a few lines from it. I think we don't talk enough about the fact that being nonprofit means that no larger company can ever buy us. We, like all nonprofit literary publishers, are never going to be an imprint within a larger house. So that ensures our independence and creates a robust field of small presses who, between us, add considerable richness, variety, and diversity to the publishing landscape. You, our donors, me, are our investors, and it means the world to us. Perhaps you consider that your dividends, in the form of seeing the books you help us publish, go on to shape the state of contemporary literature, impact the culture at large, and win awards. I love the stories of clarity of mission and purpose at the personal level, like the story of the late Robin Seaman, who passed away in 2019. Robin is a woman I never knew, and yet her publishing career pivot in midlife continues to serve as a personal inspiration. Robin was born and raised in the South Bay. She is not a household name. Her brother explains that she was a lifelong reader and lover of books, a big fan of Proust and other Russian writers. She worked in marketing and promotion for Oxford University Press, Macmillan, HarperCollins, and some others. And apparently she loved attending all the book fairs from London to Sharjah. In the mid-season of her life, Robin returned to the Bay Area. She took a leap from traditional publishing and began working for one of the first digital device publishers. It was a risky move, her friend and collaborator Charlotte Abbott explains. A risky move that became a stepping stone to a pioneering role at Benetech, a Bay Area company that describes itself as a different kind of tech company, a nonprofit with a pure focus on developing software for social good. Bookshare readers have what's called a print disability, blindness, dyslexia, cerebral palsy, or severe arthritis. Robin's colleague, Julian Hetzler, explains that Robin completely transformed the Bookshare model. Her enthusiasm and commitment, according to Publishers Weekly, led to Bookshare's collection of nearly 700,000 digital titles. Robin's commitment to making reading available to everyone is also reflected through her work in Born Accessible, an initiative to encourage publishers to create accessible content from its inception. Robin chaired the Accessible Working Group of the Book Industry Study Group, which promotes best practices in accessibility in publishing. And in 2016, she was awarded their Distinguished Service Award for chairing the committee that produced their Quick Start Guide to Accessible Publishing. When we clarify our mission and purpose and lean into our values and creativity, we get good at articulating and championing those values. And that, in our context, is what I think the unpredictability Snyder was referring to. Number 2, relationships will rebuild our cultures. I started this section thinking deeply about culture and how we often miss the connection between relationships and cultures in publishing. In February, Carrie Bloxson, who heads DEI work at Hachette, delivered the keynote at the PubWest annual conference in Denver. I was so struck by how Carrie centered the why for her work to help make Hachette and the industry more broadly, more meaningfully inclusive, by sharing some of her own experiences as a Black woman and working in publishing. My eyes watered listening to Carrie, a mix of gratitude for her courage and vulnerability. As she spoke about the effects of some of her experiences in publishing, I could taste the saltiness from some of my own experiences and the residual hurt of just being often the only Black person or the only person of color in the room. In one instance, most memorably, I watched a well-known underperformer get promoted, and it was such a baffling thing to me. I had created and managed best-selling campaigns for each year of my tenure. When I finally mustered the courage to ask about the criteria for the promotion, I will always remember being told, quote, it was an encouragement promotion. In other words, leadership really liked the underperformer. Personally, they had a lot in common. And she did not want the underperforming colleague to leave. Well, she did leave, and eventually I did too, with the promotion and raise that I lobbied for, as I made it clear that I knew my self-worth. And the bean counters at that company did too. The Great Resignation is real, and it is affecting publishing. So when I listened to the panelists on the Publishing Now 2022 Driving Business Forward webinar, co-hosted by Westchester Publishing Services and Publishers Weekly last month, I was so struck by how much of Jessica Ryan's language about navigating the challenges of the pandemic was steeped in her understanding and a real sense of how relationships will rebuild our cultures. Ryan is editorial production manager for Duke University Press. With long printing schedules and materials in short supply, the only thing perhaps going for us as a university press were the strong relationships. While the pandemic helped Duke University Press get over their anxiety about transitioning to short-run digital printing and dropship POD fulfillment, it has not been easy. Moreover, Ryan explains how university presses have always struggled with opening growth within their organizations. And yet in the last year, she and her colleagues in leadership, marketing, and human resources have reclassified 32 positions to offer opportunities for growth and leadership. They have, quote, increased its commitment to address the lack of opportunities for Black, Indigenous, people of color to pursue careers in academic publishing through internships and their mentorship. Their mentorship program, which Ryan explained, is aimed at giving mentees real skills in editing, proofreading, and project management, so that they can confidently list these skills on their resume, as well as begin to network. Here is what was perhaps most encouraging to hear as Ryan spoke about the challenges of the moment for her press, and in thinking about the industry more broadly. Quote, perhaps the most difficult part of the last 2 years has been how to maintain a sense of professional camaraderie within each department, as well as across the press. We no longer expect our colleagues to be single-minded in their work. Each of us has to struggle with multiple demands throughout the day. Remote schooling, daycare disruptions, illness, loneliness, poor internet connections, crowded working conditions, and more. When I think of what needs to be put in place to ensure success in this changing environment, Ryan concludes, I immediately think that compassion, empathy, and flexibility must be the values that we dedicate ourselves to when we begin our work each day. Number 3, I believe collaboration is our future. In January, Publishers Marketplace quoted from a press release sent over PR Newswire with this headline: Source Books partners with Ebony Publishing and announces upcoming slate. This is a new collaboration between Source Books, a Midwest publisher, and the largest woman-owned publisher in the United States, and Ebony Publishing, the publishing arm of the iconic Ebony brand. This collaboration with our flagship imprint, Ebony Magazine Publishing, will celebrate the broad spectrum of Black voices through powerful fiction and nonfiction stories with authors who represent and speak to the full spectrum of our culture. That was Lavelle, president and publisher of Ebony Publishing. This partnership will combine Source Books' best-in-class publishing experience and infrastructure with Ebony's 75-year history. Their plans are to publish 4 to 8 books a year ranging from adult fiction to nonfiction. In March came a press release with the headline, "We Need Diverse Books Announces Rise Up, Retention Program for Diverse Mid-Level Publishing Professionals," inspired by the 2019 Diversity Baseline Survey from 𝗲𝗏𝗏 Books. Rise Up will include a community platform of diverse mid-level adult and children's publishing professionals to connect, share resources, and join in virtual meetups facilitated by We Need Diverse Books, along with a virtual professional development webinar series for mid-level publishing professionals. We Need Diverse Book used 𝗲𝗏𝗏 Books' 2019 survey. They gathered input from their mid-level internship grant alumni, their internship grant committee members, and the larger We Need Diverse Books community. Here's a line from the release. The survey's data highlights the importance of retaining mid-level professionals, since many leave the industry within 3 to 6 years due to workplace barriers like toxic workplace environments, lack of room for career growth, and unsustainable pay. 𝗕𝗿𝗍𝗍𝗍 from We Need Diverse Books explains, our community partners, such as 𝗲𝗏𝗏 Books, people of color in publishing, Latinx in publishing, have been raising these red flags for years. So together, they built and are building Rise Up in partnership with Beacon Press and Hachette Book Group, the two publishers who will serve as sponsors for 2022. Collaboration, it's our future. Some of the collaboration happening internationally is especially encouraging to me, including most recently coverage on the heels of the London Book Fair early this month. One of the most important aspects of the fair is its role as a global forum for the exchange of cultural ideas and literature. And we are delighted to shine a spotlight on all that Sharjah Publishing and Emirati literature has to offer. That was Andy Ventris, director of the London Book Fair, on their website. Sharjah is the star of the London Book Fair, wrote Saeed Saeed earlier this month in the nationalnews.com as part of the United Arab Emirates publication coverage of the London Book Fair. This year, Sharjah was the 2022 market focus. This is an initiative by the London Book Fair created in 2004 that, quote, aims to put a spotlight on a designated country's publishing industry and to create a forum where further global connections and publishing deals are made. In this way, they join China, Mexico, South Africa, and Australia, among others, in using the platform to promote its thriving cultural industry. Here's what Ahmed Al-Ameri, the Sharjah Book Authority chairman, said to Saeed about the significance of this partnership. Quote, to be given the position of being the market focus for the book fair is similar to being a guest of honor of the event. And this is especially important because we are the first Arab city to do this in London. By coming here, we are giving people a glimpse of what Sharjah has to offer. We are telling the world we have literature, education, culture, heritage, and history that people can learn from. In closing, let me share a few words about publicity and marketing, because promotion is at the heart of what I do in our ecosystem. And without a doubt, this is a fascinating, overwhelming, and exciting time to be in communications and promotion. Mike Shatskin, the publishing veteran and blogger, is really adept at chronicling the big changes in our industry. Quote, book publishing is not going to stop or even slow down. That's what he wrote 2 years ago. In a separate post, he explained, the universe of possible titles now is about 18 million unique possibilities, or about 35 to 40 times more titles competing with each new book for attention and sales than existed 3 decades ago. Last week, a friend texted me a link to the very tender ode that Ann Patchett wrote in Oprah Daily to her long-term publicist, Jane Byrne. Jane Byrne recently announced her retirement from HarperCollins. It is a rare and really lovely public expression of gratitude for an often thankless job. But I must also confess that Anne's description of what a publicist does read to me as largely unrecognizable. This notion of folding letters into arcs and bulk mailing them and hoping that people will get those packages and open them and call them, and meanwhile burning through precious marketing dollars on postage and packaging, and then scheduling grueling book tours, feels very yesteryear to me. What feels recognizable in its portrait of present-day book publicity is an article Rachel Bell, my colleague on the Pub West board, shared with me recently. It's written by Sarah Menacci, an in-house publicist for Sutherland Books in Canada, with extensive experience in Toronto and New York City markets. Here's a line from it. Quote, "As the old world of publicity declines, a new, more chaotic, but nevertheless effective book scene is rising in its place. Thousands of book influencers are filling the void. Book talk is a thing, along with bookstagrammers, booktubers, book bloggers, book podcasts, and book newsletters. Some have 5 followers, and some have 500,000. It's easy to sneer at them as unschooled amateurs. Few of them have the critical skills or authority of the old school reviewers, but they have boundless enthusiasm, and some are incredibly knowledgeable about their subject areas. Messy, chaotic, and ripe with opportunity, kind of like democracy itself. Now, I understand that many authors and certainly publishers still by and large want coverage in national outlets like the New York Times and National Public Radio's nationally syndicated shows and Good Morning America. But here's the truth, and this has always been the truth. Only in certain cases are those outlets truly the best places to focus one's media relations efforts. So how about we sharpen and broaden what makes a book successful in reaching its audiences and convert some of those precious marketing dollars into advertising dollars to support regional, industry, and trade, print, and digital publications? One of the interesting observations during the pandemic is how much the right curation of conversation partners, collaboration, and marketing with authors, institutions, organizations, booksellers have really helped some authors grow their platforms, and how non-paid speaking invitations quickly became handsomely paid speaking opportunities and moved books. The promotional needs and interests of authors, they're not all the same. For some authors right now, it's brainstorming SEO terms with the marketing team. It's learning how to convert book content into webinars and online courses, or curating exhibitions at libraries based on a particular aspect of a book. For others, it's learning the mechanics of being effective when speaking virtually. It's working with an editor to boil down their ideas and meaningfully prepare for a podcast or a talk, or working to pen an essay for a mainstream audience. Sometimes it's figuring out how to announce a book on social media, where to drive the sales, how to respond to DMs, and my favorite, learning how to Twitter. Jenny Dietrich is a hero of mine in the field of public relations. I discovered Dietrich years ago on Twitter, probably 15 years ago now. And what we have in common is a background in agency public relations. And also, I think a real sense of gratitude for how that work led us out into the world and into different directions. I have read her terrific book, Marketing in the Round, and she's the brains behind the 𝗲𝗍𝗍 model. The 𝗲𝗍𝗍 model is a marketing strategy where businesses use a combination of paid, earned, shared, and owned media to increase brand awareness, customer loyalty, and market share. Dietrich, who is based in Chicago, continues to keep her finger on the pulse of marketing like no one else I know. Her experience, the 𝗲𝗍𝗍 model, the Spin Sucks online community that she maintains, her books, they are all an incredible resource for the world of us now in marketing and promotion. In closing, I hope I have said some things that leave you thinking about your own contribution to this ecosystem and our future. And at the start of this conference, which I'm really looking forward to attending, competition leads to innovation and clarity of purpose. Relationships will rebuild our future. Will rebuild our cultures. And collaboration is our future. Thank you, PPN. It has been fun to share these ideas with you. Happy hybrid conference, everyone.